Good morning. Happy second week of the Tour de Fleece. Yeah, I know it's Tuesday. Took yesterday off. It was a rest day, and boy, was that a good day for me. For one thing, between that and some medication that I've been taking, I have solved my terrible knee problem that was bothering me on Sunday. So I am very, very, very happy to report that that's well on the way to mending. I'm sure it was muscle spasms for some reason, and the medication worked, but also sort of staying off of it yesterday worked and helped. So what I'm going to do is not spin on my treadle, Ara, for a week, and I am going to spin on the Roberta. That's okay at the very beginning. I think I'm going to have to do a couple of the CVM bats on there during this week, and I'm not real happy about that because I have one bobbin of full of bats that I need to do the second bobbin and ply, but that will be next week. I'm just going to be real adamant. Maybe the weekend I'll go back to the Ara. We'll see how it feels. I still have a little bit of trouble when I sit for a while. It's hard to get up out of the chair because that big muscle above your knee is what pushes you up, right? Now, fortunately, it's only one leg, so I manage. Ow! Let me see. I have something to show you. I am going to be spinning Rambouillet, and I did use some of the time yesterday to ply 2 skeins of the Rambouillet that I had spun before. I am putting one bat on each bobbin of the Roberta, which are smaller bobbins, and I am plying when I have 2 bobbins. Even though I have maybe 6 bobbins for the Roberta, I just don't want to get behind and not have a bobbin to ply on. So I did some plying yesterday, and the plying doesn't really count towards meeting your ounces goal for the Twitch Tour de Fleece team, as well as it doesn't it doesn't count for spinning, in other words, so spinning every day. So I'm making sure that I do plying either as something else after I've spun already or on a day of rest, and it worked out really good to do it yesterday. I almost forgot to ply the second set. I had 4 bobbins total because I had stuck them away in a basket that has my empty bobbins and didn't think about it, saw it, and I went ahead and plied it. So this one here is the one that I just plied last, and I went ahead and left it on the bobbin and skeined it off this morning. I like to leave the skein on the Nitty Knotty for a little bit, at least maybe half a day or whatever, like I can take this off tomorrow, because that does help a little bit as far as setting twists. Not a lot, but I think it helps everything stabilize a little bit. This skein was on the Nitty Knotty, and I took it off this morning. What I love about this, even though it's not as thin as I thought I was going to get, this is Rambouillet. What I love about this is how balanced it is for a 2-ply. Absolutely no extra twist. Now it still needs to go in a bath, and that I have a few pigtails ply back right there, but that really is a good ply where the singles and the yarn are very, very relaxed and happy together. So I'm really happy with this. I started saying it's not spinning as thin as I thought it would. It's kind of between 11-12 reps per inch, which is pretty standard when I spin on my Roberta. Now I have to make myself spin that way when I spin on the Ara, but the Roberta, being electric, has that pretty strong pull in, and I kind of it's hard to keep up with that pull in. I try to cut it back, but it's bobbin driven, And so I do end up with more fiber going into the drafting zone on a regular basis when I'm just doing my regular spinning, which is why I end up with the lower wraps per inch instead of getting something as thin as I want. The fiber that I did these 6 bats out of is from a fleece, and it was a ram by the name of Bullwinkle. And I divided the fiber up into 3 sections, and this is the best, right? And I went ahead and carded it and kept it white. Now, the next 2 sections is going to go into a die pot, and it hasn't been picked apart. It's been washed, but it hasn't been processed any further than that. I'm going to go ahead and put them in the die pot and then do the processing. So that's what I am going to be spinning today, and I wanted to make sure I showed you the resulting yarn I should be getting. I have 2 more bats, so this is it. I have been spinning 1 bat a day. I probably will stick with that, but stream every day. Tomorrow I will be doing my regular Wednesday evening stream, 7 unless 7:30. It just depends on when I can get everything settled and done and get on the stream. Somewhere in there though. The one thing I want to talk about is, okay, I said this is the second week of Tour de France, and we've had a rest day. And the thing that happens is now the day count no longer matches the stage count. This is technically the 11th day of the 21 that the Fleece Tour de France covers, but they don't count the rest days. And it really, really gets confusing towards the end as you try to remember, okay, is this day? If you use the day, you have to understand that you're not really talking about what event happened on that day unless you use the stage. So I have switched. I have been saying day. It kind of told me, where we were at the beginning. But now it don't matter as far as naming, except for the fact that I want to make sure I keep the stages connected with what's really happening in the bike race. Okay, so that's why it says stage 10, and the Rambo, of course, is short for Rambouillet. I just didn't want to spell that all out, and second, sometimes I'm not real sure I'm spelling it right, so we're just gonna call it Rambo. Good morning, KB. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. I decided to stream early this morning. I was up at 5:30 my time, and I just was sort of ready to go. I was thinking about even hopping on at 8:30, but I decided let a few other people wake up before I got on. So I'm streaming early today. This is the Rambouillet bat. I know I've probably... Hi, Jane Wayne. Good morning. Probably have shown this. It is incredibly fluffy wonderfulness. It is super soft. Rambouillet is a merino-based genetics, so it has that softness of merino, and it's just so squishy. It is done on my big drum carder, and it just loved it. It loved drum carding it. So after I dye the rest of this fiber, I will be making bats and spinning it that way too, and probably putting this white with the color that I get from the black walnut dye. So this is going to be what I spin. This is a skein of yarn of already spun Rambo. And it's in a 2-yard skein, so, it's kind of hard to show, but I am really happy with how this is spinning. Really happy. KB says, I got to finish laundry and cut grass. Hope to get it done before I start my stream today. I went the other way. I put off all my housework, and I'll do that later. Jane Wayne said, I watched some of your lock spin and was wondering what would you do with that? Oh, that yarn, yes. Mostly I just show it off and pet it and keep it around. But there is enough single in between the locks that is perfectly possible to knit with it. I'm not a crocheter, so I don't say crochet. I'm sure you probably could. But what would happen if you're knitting with it is you just go along until you hit a lock and put it towards the front and, continue knitting whatever you want. Now, where would I put it? I would put it on top, around a brim of a hat. If I wanted a sheepy looking hat, that might fall down in your face. And so, it just kind of depends on the placement of the locks, whether that's a good idea or not. I would put it at the top of slipper socks where it has an actual cuff. That would be fun. But the biggest deal is, the biggest problem is, you have to hand wash. Whatever you do, you have to really carefully hand wash it. And yes, if you weave with it, it would be a perfect addition. And that is actually a very good to get something that isn't going to get a lot of use, is a very perfect use for it. So that's a good idea. I actually have a very small tapestry loom where you just hand hold it, and I could see very easily making a small wall hanging on that using it. And I have done others. Boy, this is just flying here. Let's slow that down. I have done others. And so I could combine them, put it in there. I could space them out between just some regular wool that I spin. It would be lovely. It would be really pretty. Definitely considered an art yarn, although it's not your typical art yarn that is mostly written about in books. It's a way to use those locks. I have that project half done. I did not do the second half of the fiber and locks that I have during the stream, so I will have to do another. I did not measure the yardage on that, so I don't really know, but I'm pretty sure I will get a second skein about like that first skein. And after I get that second skein done, I will steam set it, to steam set that single that's in between the locks. I won't steam the locks necessarily, but I will steam the around them and steam the single to help set it a little bit. Anything you do with it has to be done pretty delicately. You just, need to make sure that the locks get, like if you're weaving, get through the shed and pull them out forward so they sit on top of your fabric. Same as with knitting. I also envision, if I was knitting and maybe crocheting, some kind of animal, so that the body part of it, make the other part out of regular handspun yarn, but do like the body part, maybe a sheep or a rabbit or something, with the locks. None of this I have done. I have made the yarn for various and sundry different reasons, for the streaming and talking about it on the podcast and stuff like that, but haven't actually used the yarn yet. And speaking of which, I have posted in my Discord a picture of a rug that I have made out of all my handspun yarn. I did claim it for Stash Dash for the knitting. I didn't for the actual, it was hand dyed and hand spun yarn by me, but I didn't claim the yarn because I did it years ago and it was bulky and I never really knew what exactly to use for the bulky project. So I'll put my Discord here if you want to take a look. If you want to take a look at that, I am really happy with it. It's a very coarse, rough yarn. It looks like it would make a nice lap blanket or something like that, with the colors and everything. But it's itchy. Even just knitting on it, sitting on my lap to knit on it was itchy. So it's perfect for the rug. I have stood on it with my bare feet. That doesn't bother me at all. And it feels so cushy. Jane Wayne says, I just started learning to spin. That's wonderful. And you're crocheting a blanket with your yarn as you go. Yeah. I like that. I like that idea. There is no way I would ever get back to what my original yarn was when I was spinning. And, I don't have any kind of keepsake. I think it's really wonderful to get a keepsake. I know of another keepsake that somebody made. It was a wall hanging with squares put in a geometric design kind of thing of their first year of hand spinning. I just thought that was a really nice idea too. Jane Wayne says it's a nice way to show how I've improved. Yeah, and something to do with the yarn until I get good enough to make yarn for a specific project. Absolutely, it's true. It's perfect. I wish I had done it. I have no memory of those early years of spinning. It was, seriously, it was back in, I got my first wheel in 1978, so it was so many years ago. Everybody have a good rest day yesterday? Maybe you used it as a makeup day. I know there were a few people that did. I really enjoyed knitting instead of spinning. One of the things the Stash Dash has done is make me dive pretty deep into all those bags of stuff that you stick away, with every intention of getting it back out, and then you go on and you do more, and you go on and you do more, and all of a sudden those bags are just really gone and out of your mind and buried really deeply, right? I'm sure nobody else does that but me, right? So I have been taking this opportunity just to gradually go through the place I keep an awful lot of my fiber. I don't keep much of my yarn downstairs, and I am still unable to really go upstairs and get to my real yarn stash. But there's a fair amount down here, mostly because I got really tired of going upstairs trying to find sock yarn for the Sock Madness. And so I brought all my sock yarn down, so there's a lot of that. But there was a lot of odds and ends, too, from previous projects. And that's what I have decided to try and clean up a little bit and do little things, little projects. I made it was supposed to be a scrubby. It's not going to be a scrubby. I'm working with Christmas yarn right now, so it's going to be it's real good mug rug, so it can be that, or put it under a candle, wherever I set the candle. So I made that. I am working with the scrubby yarn that is not coarse. It is cotton yarn base. It looks like one-sided rickrack. It has the little picots or whatever on the one side of it. I do not know why they call it a scrubby yarn, because to me that's not really scrubby yarn. But it came with a pattern book. I bought this as a Mary Maxim, put together kit, and it came with a pattern book, and so I'm just working with that pattern book and that leftover yarn, as well as I bought sugar and cream in Christmas colors sometime after Christmas last year, and I'm working on using that too. So that's my current make it from your library project, but it also goes in the stash too. Hubby thinks I'm crazy. He asks what it is, and I say, oh, it's a dishcloth, and he just like, you know that sound. Like, oh, come on. You're knitting a dishcloth sound? I really like having short projects I can get done, I can make a dishcloth in 2 evenings. I had more trouble with the scrubby. I finally got it, but oh my gosh, it's crocheted in the last 4 rows actually, was just driving me crazy. I could not get it to look like the picture at all, but I did. I finally got it. I had to really sit and read the pattern, one little section at a time, word by word, and then I got it. This spins up so nice. I'm really sorry I only have one more bat after this. Jane Wayne says, I've been working on a shawl for so long and had to do a dishcloth just to feel some accomplishment again. Yes, I have 3 shawls that are whips, and I did not even think about those as something for the stash dash or whatever, because I knew it'd be the only thing I did, and I didn't want to do that. There is my next big one that I'll pick up. I got the rug done, and that was close enough that I knew that I'd get it done. Now, besides working on the little things here and there for Christmas, I am going to pick back up a shawl that I'm doing with hand spun and get that done, because that has been a 2-year at least, maybe 3-year project, and I want to get it done. I plan to do a lot of knitting, crocheting during the Olympics instead of spinning. I will take a break from the spinning. Um, I don't know if Ravelry, I have trouble saying that, is going to do a Ravelinix or not. They, the same as the Tour de Fleece. A lot of times they have been in the past doing Ravelinix during the Olympics, where you set yourself goals and stuff like that. I've been doing that for years too. Any excuse. Usually the Ravelinix is knitting focused. When they do the spinning groups do the spinning, but it came out so knit and crochet oriented when Ravelry came out, that these things, naturally were for knitting and crocheting at first. And then the spinning, they got their ability to put it in your library, in your stash, and made a hand knit category all for itself. So, the spinning now is part of it too, but it had to develop over the years. It didn't come out right away with the opening of Ravelry. I will just put this out here for those that do fleece processing. Um, this fiber was washed last year with, I bought it in 2019. It is a ram, and Rambouillet is a pretty high lanolin fleece, and it was pretty high. It was a large fleece. I washed it in 3 sections. I may have washed it in even more than that, 4 sections. On the other hand, I wanted to let everybody know I washed it with the Power Scour, which is a unicorn product. I get mine at the Woolery, and it's super, super clean. I mean, it's not brittle. It's very soft. There is no stickiness to it. The Power Scour did a really good job on it. I'm very, very impressed. Now, there are several different ways that people will say about washing fleece, and one is multiple washes but no soak time, and the other is, 1 or 2 washes that where it sits in the soak. One of the reasons people don't like the concept of soaking is that as the water cools, that lanolin can go back onto your fleece, and the whole point is to get the lanolin off and into the water and out. And I think the reason it worked, this was a soak with time, okay? It was not a quick wash. I think the reason it worked is the Power Scour is kind of working by preventing that lanolin, or dissolving the lanolin enough that it goes into the Power Scour soap and stays in the water instead of going back on. Whereas some products will allow that, as the water cools, to recongeal on your fiber. So I'm only saying this, that washing high lanolin fleeces is a problem. And I believe the Power Scour works pretty good for it. There's always the caveat that you may hit a fleece that it doesn't work. I mean, obviously. And you always need to check before you really work with it further to see if how it feels after it dries, to see if the lanolin's off. But I'm really, really happy that I'm not going to have to deal with lanolin on this, because I washed everything the same way, and that means what I'm going to dye. I'm talking about, if it had lanolin on it, I'd have to clean it again before I dyed it. I would probably use Natalie Redding's wash and dye, which you wash it and put it in the dye pot straight from the wash with the wash and dye. She tends to use pretty low lanolin fleeces with her spinning because she likes art yarns, and she's using long wools, and the breeds that she's getting tend to be on the long wools and on the low lanolin side. So, I take that with a grain of salt, saying that her products might not be as good with a high lanolin. She would claim it is, and it all will depend. Your usage will vary, right? Now, having said that, there is another unicorn company product called Beyond Clean, and I don't think I have used that for fleece, and I wasn't real impressed with it for fleece. So, it's a matter of trial and error. just realized my camera isn't really showing my hands. Close your eyes, folks. I'm gonna move it a little bit. There we go. I have been doing so much home processed fiber that one thing, it's all been natural color, so I need some color. And second, I am so tired of shortcuts that you get when you buy a fleece. Pull out as much as I can. The really little stuff gets spun in, it doesn't matter. I'm ready for some beautifully processed, dyed by somebody else fiber. Which is what I'll do if I meet my goal. That's what I'll do. I also have mill spun Rambo, a different fleece, an older fleece that I have started. I started a long time ago on my Ashford traditional and have not picked that spin back up at all. And that would really be nice to get that done. So that's a possibility too, although it's white. I'm back to white. I just like to spin it white and then decide if I want it dyed later. Dye the yarn. Because it's pretty unusual. It's really rare for me to knit with. Now, I'll knit with the grays and multicolors and that. I'm talking about like Jacob and stuff like that I spin. So I'll knit with those. But usually I dye the white. This is a chunky bat. It really does separate out into smaller strips, which helps me spin thinner, although this is not spinning as thin as I thought it was when I was first spinning the first bats before I made that skein of yarn. I thought it was spinning thinner than 11 wraps per inch. It isn't, though. Part of that is it'll look thinner, but it's merino genetic, and that merino genetic makes it poof a little bit. One of the things I was noticing was, okay, so I've been spinning a lot of CVM, which is puffy. I mean, it has crimp and it seems springy when you're spinning it and everything, but I don't notice the bounce back with it. So I actively was spinning that at 11 wraps per inch. I was keeping track of it, and taking my thing and measuring here, and I was getting it at 22. This is more like 28. Okay, when I use this gauge, I'm get 28 on this, but when I plied it and made it, was checking the wraps per inch as a 2-ply, it was coming out 11 wraps per inch. So there was more bounce to it. Now I've plied the light gray, which was one fleece. I have 2 fleeces that I'm doing from the CVM. And I plied the light gray and I got 11 wraps per inch by my following that control card at 22. So there was no bounce back, right? The different fibers react that way when you ply them because they have a genetics that is springier, like merino. So it really depends on what you spin. What breed you spin. It really makes a difference. I bought a fleece this year. I have bought one fleece so far this year. It was a Shetland that was black and white in the fleece. And I totally separated the black and the white. I'm not going to combine them. And more than likely I will comb it. I'll see. I'll do a test bat with my hand carders and combing. But it has to be the staple has to be long enough for me to use I don't want to comb it by hand with my small hand combs. I want to use my big Indigo Hound clamp combs. You can process more fiber, and it's just because there would be so much to comb, it's easier on your hands. But anyway, I want to use that if I comb it, and I'll have to check that out too. There's a whole bunch of stuff to figure out, but it's washed and ready. I will be doing that in the fall after I get through the Olympics. Or maybe I'll be doing a little bit during that time. Probably do a little bit of the sampling on stream. But the black is so pretty. I want it to spin really thin. I want lace weight. I don't know if I'll get it. Fortunately, Shetland is one of those breeds that does not bounce back. And they called it a Shetland. I don't know if it's 100% or not. They didn't have to certify that for anything for like Shame the Same or anything. Oh man, that was amazing. When I went to that fiber fair, which was the first I'd gone to, for a year and a half, and walked to that booth that had, it was the size of 3 booths. It was tables in 3 sides of that booth, and it was nothing but bags of fleeces. I mean, just maybe 50, 60 fleeces. And that's because they had no way to really sell them during 2020. And so, it was 2 years of fleeces of their spinner flock or their vendors. So I don't really call it a spinner flock in the sense that it was their small personal flock. Anyway, man, it was hard to decide. I wanted to take 2 or 3. But I was good. They were in Indiana. I don't know if they'll be at the one I'm going to go to in Ohio. It's in September 18th and 19th at Yellow Springs, or I should say, it's at Young's Jersey Dairy Farm. But it's near Yellow Springs, Dayton area. Yes and no. It really depends on timing, quality, how desperate the seller is, because it's a small niche market. I'm answering the question Jane Wayne asked, is it pretty cheap to buy non-processed fiber? Okay. So when you're buying a wool fleece, sometimes it seems high. And this particular Rambo is one case where I paid $90 for the entire fleece. And that's high. Okay, that is high. I have paid as little as $20 for a big fleece. They won't break fleeces apart usually. Now in the rare breeds they will, and sell a pound of it. And then hopefully you're depending on the person who is selling it I'm going to switch here. You're depending on the person who's selling it to give you some of the really good stuff, a little bit of the not so good, right? To give you a sampling of the entire fleece if they're selling a little bit of it. I bought my Caracol that way. I think I bought a Jacob that way for the Shave 'em to Save 'em. So online, if you don't want to buy an entire fleece, you can go online and usually find a partial. And you're a little at the mercy of the seller that they're going to give you a decent part as well as the not good part. And I know there's been instances where the results have not been good for people who bought it that way. You can always deal with that with the seller and take care of saying that you're not happy and that sort of thing. But it's one way to not have a big expense, right? And generally those are like $20, even though you're not getting a whole fleece. You might get it washed and you wouldn't have to wash it. Sometimes they do that, for your $20. So on Etsy, you can find smaller. But when you go to a fiber fair, these are straight sheared off the sheep, folded in such a way that the really nice part shows at the top of a big plastic bag. And in truth, they don't want you to dig that all out, right? They don't mind if you handle what they're showing and maybe look a little bit, and they will give you the weight so that you have a general idea how much you're buying, and of course the breed and that sort of thing. And when you buy it that way, it's usually by the pound, and they will have a price set. And so, when I bought the Shetland I was just talking about, I think it's a smaller sheep. I think it was around 5 pounds, and I paid around $40. So that to me is inexpensive, and yet I understand as new spinners that can seem very expensive because you still have a lot of work to do. Some people, on top of buying the fleece, will send it to a mill and get it processed, which I have done. I loved it, but it's an extra $40, $50, and you can't send the whole fleece. You only send the really nice stuff because you don't want to send anything that has, any dirt, excessive vegetable matter, any dirt or whatever. Or you are not going to get a good product back if you include that with the mill. They can't get everything out. The better wool you send to a mill, the better, roving you're going to get back. And that was just a whole rant and dialogue about buying fleece. It doesn't really answer your question because it's all relative. If you buy roving for a natural roving that's not dyed, they just had a mill do it or whatever, that's probably your cheapest way to get a fiber that you don't have to do anything to. And yet it's still, like my favorite vendor for the Passport, Wahala, it's still over $20 for 4 ounces when you're buying her fiber. Her fiber is gorgeous. It's well processed. It's worth it. But, it's expensive. It's more of a question of here's another thing. There are fleeces that are gorgeous with their wonderful locks. They just have these locks that are just intact and they're beautiful. They're long. See, that shouldn't be processed in any way other than by the lock. And it's worth getting that kind of fleece to spin by the lock. You have to wash those locks in a way that they stay together, and so you have to take some care. You can dye the locks that way if you want, but then you have to take a comb and comb each lock and spin it. Some fleeces are worth doing that, and they don't often cost a lot. It's just a lot of time, and it depends on how much your time is worth, right? And I would never do that and try and resell it. My time's not worth trying to do the work and resell it. I could never get the price for the amount of work that I put into it. Well, good. I hope that helped a little bit. It's more about the experience. I mean, I am so hooked on raw fleece and processing. I just hardly ever look at the processed dyed fiber at a fiber fair. I will buy it online, and I certainly have a huge stash of it because I bought it over the years. But my point is that the true experience for me when I go to a fiber fair is looking at those fleeces and buying some, and keeping myself maybe down to one is a good thing, but yeah. So I'm just happen to be a person who enjoys doing it. Now, other spinners like Snoring Cat, she buys great big bulk mill processed fiber, and because she is spinning it for resale, so that is the least amount of work for her except for spinning it, and is definite price. So she has a price point for what she does sell. So if you're going to make a business out of it, sometimes it's worth buying something at a process point because that saves you time and you can get your money back by what you make because you buy it in such large quantity. I am all about the business end of it because I did that. I'm not doing it now, but I never stopped thinking about it because you do reach a point where you make way more than you can use if you get totally hooked by spinning. And then you have to decide what to do with it. The other thing is if you raise any fiber animals, you get more than you can use. One rabbit's not going to do that to you. 30 rabbits will. That's when I ended up having to sell it. I am so excited. I am going to go to a knit together for the first time in literally years. Not just the pandemic thing, because I was working and I could never go to, I worked second shift. I could never go to anything in the evening during all those years of working. And if it was, unless it was held on a Saturday afternoon, I couldn't get there. So I am so excited. I am going to go. It's a brand new get together. And it is, what's really exciting about it is put together by a girl, and I don't know her, but based on the bio she listed at the bottom of the invitation, it was Meetup is an app that I use for what's going on in the community. And she put that she is the new owner of a yarn store in the next big town up here, Louisville, that has been closed for like 5 years. So I'm really looking forward to finding out if it's open, if she's, how that's going to work, and what's going to be happening with that. So I'm going tomorrow evening, and I'm supposed to stream normally on Wednesday evenings. So I will stream early tomorrow, not my normal time. I probably should change that on my schedule. On my Twitch page. I'm glad I thought of that. That's a good reminder. I'm so excited. It's a coffee shop and it just sounds so back to normal. And hubby said, "Oh, you go. I'm not going to go. You just go." And that's unusual too. Usually he wants to go wherever we go because he doesn't get out of the house either and doesn't drive. But he's like, "No, you just go." So I'll have that to talk about on Thursday. I need to make a salad for my lunch today. I bought fresh spinach. I can make a good salad. I got a tomato that's ripe. Sounds good. I've been lazy about making salads. It's one thing. Hubby cooks a little bit, but it's the one thing he does not do. He does not do salads. If he did salads, I would get a quarter of an iceberg ahead of an iceberg lettuce. And that's it. That's what would be in the bowl. You chop it yourself. He is so used to steakhouses. That's what they do at steakhouses. When, he orders the wedge salad, that's how it comes. He has to spend the next 10 minutes chopping it up so he can eat it. All right, I need to take a stretch break after this. I've hit 1 hour. Boy, time flies. Time really flies when you're having fun. And I'm having fun. I'm getting. I'm definitely halfway through my goal. I would think. I haven't actually added up the ounces. I did all my counting in ounces for this. Not the not the grams. Anyway, I'm more basing it on I had certain projects and getting the projects done. Um, the tailspun yarn was one project. This Rambo was another project. The light gray CMV was another project. And the dark gray has the most left. So I have half of the tailspun caracol, and this will get finished tomorrow except for plying. So really, I have the dark CVM, and I have probably 10 bats to spin. I've been spinning 2 bats during a stream, so it's definitely doable. I'm very pleased with the amount I'm getting done. I misspoke a little bit. I said, well, it was fleece. I said I only bought one fleece this year. I only bought one wool fleece, but then I bought 3 alpaca blankets when I went to the alpaca farm. So that also has to be washed. That was also new acquisition. It's not really considered fleece. It's always called a blanket when it's alpaca, but it's already I packed it away and it's already out of sight, out of mind. And I need to not forget it. Oh, oh we. Avenging Pineapple, welcome. So how strong is made? I never know how people made string. This, you said, yes, this is yarn, and it's called spinning. The fiber I'm working with is from a sheep. We call it wool. And it's very strong because this is putting twist into it, and that makes it very strong. Generally, we take 2 of these and put them together. It's called plying. And once it's plied, this is what it looks like. This is the yarn. It's very soft, but some wool is soft and some isn't. Morning, Veggie. Welcome. How are you this morning? So this is what I'm doing here is going to end up like this yarn. And yeah, that's why I'm doing this, because a lot of people have never seen spinning or know about it. Sometimes when I do it, people say, oh, I remember my grandmother doing that. Because many years ago, that was the only way we got the yarn to weave or make things with, was by spinning. Now, of course, it's an industry and mills make it commercially. It's called spinning, yes, in English. That's cool. I'm so glad you got to see it. I love it when somebody comes along and they say, oh, what are you doing? Makes me glad I'm streaming. I happen to be using an electric spinning wheel. So electric runs the motor and makes the turning happening to make the twist. But a lot of times you'll see people, and I have them, where the spinning wheel is turned by treadling with your feet on a treadle. So, this is an electric one. Just made that way. Then I knit with the yarn, or crochet, or weave. I mean, it's the same kind of yarn like you buy in the store. It's not the same. The hand spun yarn is very organic. Not organic in the sense of no chemicals, but organic in that it feels very much alive. It has bounce. It's comes in natural colors sometimes from the sheep. So it's not the same as what you buy at the store. It has qualities that make it very enjoyable to knit with. And sometimes those qualities make it harder because you might not get the gauge, the swatch gauge, that a commercial yarn would get. It is a very relaxing process, very tactile. You enjoy the feel of the fiber, usually. Sometimes it's rough, but it's very enjoyable when it's not and it's real soft. You can enjoy the colors. Some people, there's a lot of times it's dyed in beautiful colors. So you get to see those beautiful colors become yarn. And the yarn can come from, the fiber that you use can come from a lot of animals. Besides sheep, you can have alpaca, llama, silk, can be plants, cotton, flax, which is linen, hemp, all sorts of, they can have man-made fibers out of bamboo, milk, corn. There's a huge selection. And you can even, in some cases, spin acrylic. And as Jane Wayne pointed out, and I totally forgot, cotton. Yes, but I am looking forward to spinning it on my Nano because that is the perfect spinning wheel for spinning cotton. The cotton that I was spinning, I did two ways. I did on the Ashford traditional, which is a Scotch tension and very finicky because I bought it in 1978. So it's an older wheel that just, it's, you can't sit down and spin on it because it has gone through weather changes that affect it, right? But I've spun cotton roving on that. I've spun it a little bit on a charka. I am not good on a charka and I'm not good on a support spindle. So those would be the ways that you could spin it. But I am really looking forward to, I have some dyed cotton sliver that I am going to be spinning on the Nano next. And I'm sure that'll happen on stream. I have 100% silk on the Nano right now. Jane Wayne says, my grandfather was born from cotton picking immigrants and I would like to try it. Yes, nice heritage. I have had the opportunity to just get cotton bowls and try and spin from it, but it really is, that's just like almost impossible. It does not correlate to spinning from a lock from the sheep at all. Cotton does really, really well with carding, and they use very fine tooth, many teeth carders, and they sell cotton cards. Right, that's what you would really need to process it. At this point in time, I have no desire to do that. I'm just buying cotton already processed. The one thing I haven't done is dye cotton. I have bought it dyed, but I've never dyed cotton. To be honest with you, I think I would use RIT dye. But some of the specialty, shops that sell a lot of dye stuff probably would have special dyes for cotton. I just never looked into it. Tweenway is one of those. It's an unusual. I hope they're still in business. I haven't bought from them a long time, but it's where you can get some unusual stuff for spinning and dyeing. I'm almost done here. I'm going to look them up real quick and see. It's not a name you hear much anymore. Jane Wayne says, my mom lives, there are lots of cotton farms and I'd like to ask for a small bag of bowls and use hand carders. Absolutely, that's a really good way to try it. Oh, no, I need my internet. Now, I think it's Treenway Silks. Yes, they're in Colorado. Oh, wow, that's a gorgeous. It's their wall of wonderful stuff. But maybe they're only doing silks. I guess I bought. Oh, they did. Oh. Okay, they are only silk, so I got my silk dyes from them. I was thinking that maybe they were going to have cotton too, but there might be somebody else. Anyway, this is really a cool website. I'm going to post the link here. Excuse me. Now, let's Google dyeing cotton. I'll be darned. I was, okay, the Google question is, what is the best dye for cotton? And the best overall is RIT, all-purpose powder dye. I knew that, but and of course you can use natural dyes, but yeah, all right. So there probably isn't anybody selling, cotton dyes. It's pretty much a generalized that you use RIT if you're going to try and dye cotton in any way. I love silk. Oh my gosh, I love silk and spinning it. And getting the nano has just made me even more excited about spinning silk because it spins it. That Scotch tension spins it so thin. Dharma, thank you. Crafty Mom, that's who I was trying to think of. Thank you very much. I can put a link for that too. Yep. Oh, they have white bamboo socks on their front page. Woohoo! That would be fun. Okay, so that's a really other that I have bought from them. I've bought from Tweenways. I can recommend both of them. It's, some people fall into the rabbit hole of Etsy. I fall into the rabbit hole of this place because it's so much like the socks, blanks that you can buy. Of course, their Dharma is going for the tie-dye, right? The cotton t-shirts and oh my gosh, they have cotton shifts that you can make for house dresses, and it's just a really awesome rabbit hole to fall down into if you want. I have one more little piece to do here. I'm not quite at the 2 hours, but I'm still babying my knee a little bit. So I'm going to spin that and then I'll go see if we want to raid anybody, if there's anybody on. Um, KB has left the room. I have a feeling she's probably streaming. So she was here earlier. And depending on who's streaming when, I may stick to this time for tomorrow. Normally, like I said, I'd be doing it in the evening, but I want to go to that knitting meetup, so that's in the evening. Prochemical. Well, hello, Voodoo. Thank you. Prochemical and Dye is another U.S. site. I am not familiar with them. I need to look them up. I will write that down. Sounds like a site that you would get if you are doing big batches to sell. Although I'll tell you what, a little bit of dye, purchasing a little bit of powdered dye goes a long way. I get to the point where I'm tired of the same colors. Over the years, between the regular acid dyes, the silk dyes, I have probably accumulated 20 different colors. So you would think that, and I can combine them within limits. I can combine them and get other things, which I do. But I got into the natural dyeing. The last 5 years, I really focused on the natural dyeing, and I didn't buy the natural dyes. I was using what is in my environment. I loved the lichen dyeing. I'm very fortunate to live on my own property where I have dying trees, and I can take a little bit of lichen off of that. And I loved that dye. That was fun. Didn't get any of the pretty purples or reds or anything like that. I just got the standard kind of pinkish tan color. No matter what I did, even with ammonia. That is based on the genetics of the lichen. The lichen has to have that genetics in it. And then, of course, I've been doing the black walnut dye. A couple times I've done wildflower that grew in my fields. Picked their flowers. So, okay. Voodoo says it's one all cat fibers recommended. They start with small amounts. Okay. That's good to know. You don't have to buy a huge amount. Thank you for that information. I appreciate that. Okay. That bobbin is done, and I have one bat left, plus there's been a few bits and bobs that I set aside from the bats that I've been doing that I'll just do a handcard bat with to finish it up. Let's see. I just turned the music off. You're not going crazy. Voodoo says natural dyeing at some point is something I'd like to get around to trying. Yeah. It's interesting. The colors are kind of indescribable. You don't get those bright, vivid colors, but they have depth, and they're a little unpredictable. Oh, no. KB is not on yet. Girl November is doing color work. Vixen X is having a sculpt day. Here's one new to me. 3D washi art postcard. Does that not sound intriguing? I know it's not fiber, but I want to check her out anyway. What's... Oh, and one clumsy bat is mending. Let me go to this and make sure it's in English.
You're like my best friend.
This... Alright, I'm there. It's definitely paperwork.
Okay, I think it looks good. And now I'm going to apply.
I don't know if you can hear this or not.
The freaking card.
Okay. It's in English.
Come on, work with me here. Work with me.
We're gonna go there.
See, you got this nice little border. I like this border.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Thank you all. See you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Same fiber.
See you
I have one
guys.
more bat to spin,
I
and then
know.
we'll be done with that. So, we are going to read.
All right, hold on. Hold on. Let me catch up to the chat later, guys. Chill, chill, chill. Please wait. Please wait for me. Chill, chill, chill. I can't. I'm delayed. I'm supposed to be ending at 30, but now it's like 38. Ah!
Okay, I
Almost
can't even
done, guys. You
pronounce
gotta
her
wait for
name.
me. Guys, wait. Wait. Hold on. I'm not done.
Toku Bet
This is like, I need to be
Sumemory?
like precise on this shit.
Something like that? Close to?
Wait. What am I doing? I should just do it like this.
Anyway,
What am
thank
I
you.
doing?
See you all later. Bye. Happy
First
spinning.
time, guys. First time. Come back in the next 30 minutes. You can just lurk. Do whatever you need to do. Go to the bathroom. Eat breakfast.